Welcome back, y'all. Today on the Q equation, I'm going to be speaking about something that a lot of people probably don't take into consideration, um, and may even not even want to think about, right? And we're talking about dating, but specifically, we're talking about where you're trying to date, because I've been watching something play out in real time across a lot of social media platforms and the comment sections and so forth. And the hottest cities in America right now, right? The ones blowing up for on your For You page, at least. The ones that, with the aesthetic skylines and the rooftops and the social media influencers, with the secure bag energy. Those are statistically, culturally, and structurally some of the worst places on earth to find a real, genuine partner to date, whether you're a man or a woman. And I'm not just saying that, but I'm gonna really dive into it and give y'all a perspective today. Uh, we're gonna go city by city, and we're looking at the data, right? The culture, the demographics, the psychological profile of who's actually living in these places. And then, because we always bring solutions on this show, we're going to talk about where you should be looking and if a relationship is actually what you want. Okay. So yeah, let's just get into it. One, we got to address the transient problem. The transient problem, um, which is where nobody's actually from. And here's the foundational issue. And once I explain this, everything's going to click. Trust me, it's going to click into place. But the worst possible environment for genuine human connection, like the hopeless romantics and all of that, for all of you or otherwise, is an environment dominated by transient populations. I can't stress that, y'all. People who are passing through, people who are in a building phase, people who haven't decided yet if they're even staying, right? This is a lot of who you encounter when you're in these type of cities. And they are almost by definition, these cities are transient population magnets. I'm talking about the Dallases, Houston, Austin, Miami, Phoenix, Atlanta, Nashville has popped up on there. Denver, it's kind of cooling down there, but Denver is one of those places. These cities have exploded over the past decade, and a massive chunk of that growth isn't people who chose those cities based off deep alignment. These are people who followed the current wave, the vibe, what an influencer said. So they went, right? And here's why that destroys a dating culture. When someone hasn't planted roots and when they don't have a 5-year plan that includes the city that they're currently living in, they're psychologically unavailable for depth, right? Emotional depth, especially. They can't be really, because in the back of their minds, they're still auditioning the city the same way the city is auditioning them. They're not settled. They're not committed to that city or to you for that matter of fact. And research consistently backs this up, because studies on relational attachment show that residential stability is one of the strongest predictors of relationship formation and longevity. So people who have roots, community ties, long-standing friendships, and family nearby, they form deeper romantic bonds because they have an ecosystem of accountability and support. Transients, they don't have that. They have Instagram and followers, right? And the biggest thing when someone moves to a trending city, especially alone, they go through what sociologists call a social identity reset. They're literally reconstructing who they are. New city, new persona, new wardrobe, new story. And that's, that's not a bad thing. It's not inherently evil either, but people grow, right? But what it means for you trying to date them or trying to date in the place that's full of those type of people is that you're dating a work in progress, right? Who may reinvent themselves again in 18 months and decide the next city is calling them. Because this is kind of like a consistent pattern today. People will stay in a city for a year, dip out to another city the next year, dip out to another, and it just keeps going. And they become permanent drifters, vagabonds, right? You're not building with someone. You're a chapter in their content, basically. And that's where that audition culture comes in, right? And let me kind of like paint the picture here, right? You're in Dallas. It's Friday night. You're at a rooftop bar that looks immaculate on Instagram. And it does look incredible, to be fair. The skyline is hitting, the music hitting, and there's genuinely attractive people everywhere you look. But just watch exactly what's happening in front of you. Half of the people in that bar are performing being at the bar. Phones are up, angles are being checked, stories posted in real time, or they're live. The experience isn't the experience, it's the content of the experience. The actual moment is secondary to how the moment will be received by people who aren't even there. And when everyone in the dating pool is in a performance mode, you cannot get any real data on that or anything real in general. You literally can't, because the performance is it's load bearing, right? It's not a layer on top of who they are. For a lot of these people, that performance is really who they are, or at least who they've decided to be in that chapter of their social media narrative. And this is what I call audition culture. And it's the dominant social operating system now in every major trending city right now. That's a key word I focus on, is the trending city. And in audition culture, every interaction is a screen test. You're not being evaluated as a potential partner. You're being evaluated as a potential prop that's going to make their story look good. Does dating you make me look like I'm winning? Does your income, your car, your following, your aesthetics match the brand that I'm building and trying to display? Are you going to add to my story or complicate my story? And Miami is the apex of this. Miami has always had a strand of this, but social media turned it into a whole identity of the city dating scene. And, there's been studies on this. Studies on Miami dating culture consistently ranks. Look at the data. It's ranked as, it's currently ranked as one of the most appearance obsessed and financially performative cities in the dating market. And there's a 2023 survey by the dating app Hinge which it ranked Miami among the top 5 cities for ghosting and superficial first impressions. And that's the primary reason for all these failed connections that you're seeing today in the dating. This is a big thing about what people complain about in the dating world today. And Atlanta, which went through its own hype cycle, has been documented in multiple sociological pieces as having one of the most transactional heterosexual dating scenes in America, particularly in the professional Black community, where the concentration of success and ambition, that image conscious professional type of persona that was created, is so competitive that vulnerability became a liability. Nobody wants to be genuine and vulnerable. That's a liability in those type of places. And now, not far behind, Dallas and Houston are accelerating towards that same destination right now. This is what people are complaining about. This is what you see a lot of now, with people that's going and thinking, oh, I'm about to go to this place, about to be wonderful. I'm going to probably meet somebody I want. Some do, but a great majority don't. And that infrastructure, the infrastructure is already there, right? The nightlife, the money, the culture, the Instagram economy, the transplant population just came and poured gasoline all over that. And the numbers don't lie, right? Every year, multiple outlets, you got things like social media, dating outlets like, Bumble, Wallet Hub, US News, put out rankings of the best and worst cities for dating. And when you overlay those rankings with the list of TikTok's most trending migration destinations, the overlap is damning, right? Wallet Hub's most recent analysis of the best cities for singles ranked cities across 3 categories: dating economics, fun and recreation, and dating opportunities. You know which of these cities at least consistently underperform relative to their hype? The exact same ones everyone and everybody's mom and everybody's family damn near are moving to. Austin, for all its keep Austin weird slang mythology, that whole thing, that whole saying, that's what the dating scene has been. Weird. And that's now described by long-term residents who's been there. They said it's increasingly hollow there. The transplant wave of people coming into that city has completely transformed it from a quirky, artist-heavy type of music college town into a tech bro paradise where, net worth is the primary social currency there. You look at places like Miami, and it consistently ranks near the bottom for relationship formation, despite being near the top for nightlife and social opportunity, because nightlife and relationship formation are not the same thing. In fact, in a hyper nightlife cities like that, they're often the reverse, at least. And the mechanism that kind of drives this in cities built around like entertainment infrastructure with a lot of clubs and rooftop bars and music scenes and festival cultures, the entire social ecosystem is optimized for short-term dopamine hits. That's it. You go out, you have a great night, you maybe connect with someone, and then the city offers you another great night tomorrow with someone new, potentially. The supply of stimulation is infinite. And when stimulation is infinite, it incentivizes to commit to one source of it, right? So just one source. And that disappears. And even economics who, they created a term for this at least in that paradox, the paradox of choice. I think it was Barry Schwartz who documented this extensively and said, the more options you have, the less satisfied you are with any individual option, and the less likely you are to commit. Think about that. The more options you have, the less satisfied you are with any individual option, and the less likely you are to commit. Does that sound like something familiar today that we're dealing with? Dating apps gives that, illusion. Social media gives people that illusion when they have all these followers. And dating apps turn this into an actual feature. Trending cities turn their entire social infrastructure into a real world version of the same trap. And then there's the gender ratio question, which people don't talk about enough, but cities that attract ambitious professional transplants tend to attract them unevenly. Austin and San Francisco are famously male heavy and in transplants. And those demographics, which create a specific kind of dating market, is going to have distortions in it for women. Right. The women, well, at least the women are going to have an overwhelming selection power, and the men are in constant deep competition, which sounds great for the women until you realize that the market of men, they're all performing their best and their most curated version of themselves in the city of infinite options, right? That never produce real commitment. It produces a carousel. It's happened in places like Nashville, where the dating scene has been called Groundhog Day. They call it that. Denver's been called Menver, Colorado, Menver, right? And they call this Groundhog Day in Nashville by, a multitude of residents in these qualitative studies from the same bars, the same networking events, the same rotating cast of transplants in a 5-year window of their lives, right? Nobody's putting down roots because the city itself is still figuring out what it is. And so with these options and these illusions that people think they're going to have these choices, and people are going to say, well, Q man, I want the options. I want the big pool, more fish in the sea, better for me. And I hear you on that. And I feel that. And I'm going to say respectfully, you're playing yourself, because here's the thing about it. More options in the context of dating, options are only valuable if the quality of those options are real. If you've got 100 options, but 80 of them are people who are psychologically unavailable and financially performative or emotionally transient or just straight up there to be seen, you don't have 100 options at your, access. You have 20 real options buried under 80 mirages. And sorting through 80 mirages to find 20 real ones is going to burn you out and become exhausting. And this is the first frustration that you hear people voicing in so many of these cities now. It's emotionally depleting in a way that makes you cynical. And this is why people are becoming more cynical. And you notice they have very short patience for building in relationships now, because they're tired of the surface level, superficial connections that don't even last. So the expectation now has died. There's no expectation of anything to be built on. And cynicism is the death of genuine connection. There's actual research on this from, Helen Fisher at the biological and anthropology, at least, side of this, which when people are in high stimulation, high option dating environments for extended periods, their attachment system literally becomes dysregulated. They stop being able to feel the natural pull towards pair bonding because their nervous system has been so overstimulated by the constant novelty that genuine, quieter connection doesn't register as exciting anymore. So just in layman's terms at least, trending city dating, those scenes are literally rewiring people's brains to be worse at relationships, not better. You spend 2 years in that environment, you come out the other side unable to appreciate someone solid because solid feels boring. Because your baseline for stimulation has been recalibrated by a city that is essentially at least one big giant dopamine slot machine. And this is why, this is why you need to really hear this, is what I'm saying. The people who have been in these cities the longest are often the most damaged dating prospects. Not because they're bad people, but because the environment has done a number on them, man. And I mean a severe number. It's fucked them up in the head. They've been in the carousel for way too long, and they can't tell you how to get off it. They've been ghosted many a times. They've been with different weirdos and all kind of stuff on dates. And now it's really fucked them up. I'm going to give you something that's counterintuitive to what's being pushed now. But the truth, this is my opinion, boring cities is where real love lives, is where real connections can still be built. Right? Every characteristic that makes a city boring to social media is actually a green flag if you're trying to get a healthy dating life. Now, just hear me out. Hear me out on this one. It's not that diverse, that there's nothing to do, right? It's not about that. The population in these other cities are more stable, more rooted, and less likely to be there for the aesthetics. People in smaller, less trendy cities tend to have generational ties in place. They have nearby family. They have friendships that go back over 10 years. They have infrastructure rooted right in the city. They're not auditioning. They're living. The nightlife, it might be shit, to be honest with you. It might be trash. The primary, social activities that they do, they aren't built around performance and spectacle, man. It's just not. When the city's social life is centered around cookouts, communities, uh, community events, local bars, churches, neighborhood stuff, um, where you see this a lot of the same people, you start to get depth. You get repeated exposure. You get the kind of gradual familiarity that is actually how meaningful relationships form, as opposed to manufactured in intensity of a nightclub encounter. Everyone in those type of environments where it's boring, it doesn't have to be dead ass boring. Just not one of these trending cities, right? Everyone there is going to be kind of like a regular. And that might be the best thing, you know, about changing in these dating pools. Regular people who have jobs, who go home at a reasonable hour, who aren't constantly chasing the next upgrade. Those are the people you can actually build with. And some of these cities I've named in my other videos, but like Columbus, Ohio is a big sleeper. Big sleeper. Kansas City, Missouri, certain parts, it's got its rough parts. Don't get me wrong, but it has a lot of good parts and a lot of old, authentic stuff. Like people are more down to earth. You got places like Omaha, Nebraska, Louisville, Kentucky, Spokane, Washington, Richmond, Virginia, which is never gets mentioned. You don't hear nobody talking about Richmond, man. But hey, Green Bay, I'm gonna give Green Bay, Wisconsin a shout out. These places don't make the Forbes list for like hottest cities for youngest professionals or no shit like that. But study after study on these, if you look into it for yourself, on relationship satisfaction and marriage rates and social connectedness, consistently show that mid-size, stable, non-hype cities outperform major metros on every meaningful relationship metric. Go look it up. Go do your own studies. That should be foretelling right there. The Institute for Family Studies has, they have information documented extensively that residents in smaller and mid-sized cities report higher relationship satisfaction, lower divorce rates, and stronger social trust than residents in major urban centers. That's not an accident, and that's not. That's the direct output of rooted, stable, non-transient social ecosystems. And I want to be real with you, and you to be real with yourself about this. I'm not telling you to move to a place that genuinely don't fit your energy. If you're a city person, you're a city person. But there's a massive difference between choosing a city that fits your lifestyle and choosing a city just because it's trending and everybody's going there and saying how they like it and so forth and so on. Right? And if you're specifically looking for a partner, a relationship, there ain't nothing wrong with that, man. People try to make people feel guilty about that. But if that's a real priority to you, not just something you say, then the smartest move at least you can make, is to filter your location options through that lens. Stop optimizing for nightlife and clout and start optimizing for community. Those are different cities. And honestly, you would want to be in a city that is very family oriented, community oriented, if you intend on really getting with someone and building where people actually respect togetherness, marriages, and couples a lot more, where that environment is more friendly to that. People try to build environments and dating environments that are heavily transient, heavy nightlife, um, heavy swingers type of clubs and dynamics, right? Heavy into poly and all of this shit. That's not where you want to be. Like, if you don't do drugs, you don't want to move to a city that's primarily known for a lot of drug use, right? Because that's the overall environment, what it's going to be. You want to be what aligns with you for your long-term goal. And I'll close this by saying, I've watched people, good people, smart people, move to these trending cities with genuine hope. Hope for a better career, better social life, a better shot at love. And some of them found it. Some did. And I'm not saying it's impossible because, like I said, I've seen some people find that. But I'm saying the odds are so heavily stacked against you in a specific way that nobody is being honest about when they get on these social media podcasts and stuff like that and talk about it. They're just riding the hype wave because the honest conversation, at least, man, it don't get clicks. The honest conversation isn't going to sell you a dream. The honest conversation says the same thing that makes a city exciting to visit is often the same thing that makes it toxic to actually live in and find love in. And when a city becomes a brand, its dating pool becomes one big casting call. And I believe all of you deserve better than a casting call. You deserve a real person. You deserve a real place. You deserve building a better real life. Right? So, your town might be lame. I get it. But lame and stable will beat glamorous and hollow every single time. Right? Especially if you're talking about building something that lasts. Stop swiping right on the city just because the algorithm told you it was hot. That's it for this Q equation. Let's tune in again. Let's keep building something real, man. Let's keep having these insightful conversations. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the content. And drop a like too, by the way. Till next time, have a good one.